Hey, welcome to the DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm also producing the show also, so let me center myself. I'm moving up. Okay, I'm a little bit better over there. But welcome to the DFS pregame show. I'm Jordan Cooper. I'm the host, I'm the producer, I'm the proprietor of the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports. It's a 15-hour audio masterclass you could get at theoryofdfs.com. I'm here every weekday morning here on RotoGrinders YouTube. RotoGrind on the website. You can go there, you can click and you can watch the show there. You can chat in the YouTube chat there as well. And I go over yesterday's slate. All right, we talk a little bit about strategy. We talk a little bit about cash games, a lot about GPPs. I answer your questions in the chat. If you're in the chat right now, hit that thumbs up button. Give me the thummy thumbs. Give me the thumbs. Keep my apple juice cold in the morning. I see Card Fan here. I see Michael Lingelfelter here. Bill DeVault. Okay, here we go with Bill DeVault. He's one of our Discord moderators. If you say some naughty words, he comes after you. Eric Johnson in the chat. Frederick Dude in the chat. I see plenty of people in the chat. You chat people, you're my priority. If you have any questions about DFS, just in general, how to use the tools on RotoGrinders, you need some help in some way, just show up here on YouTube, 11 in the morning, any weekday, and I talk about it, because sometimes we talk about yesterday's slate a lot, sometimes we talk about today's slate a bunch, right? It's the NBA. There's an 11-game slate today, right? News is going to drop 3 hours from now, and then 4 hours from now, and then 7 hours from now. That's going to make whatever I say right now and the projections that we're looking at kind of pointless. So we could talk about overall strategies of maybe how we attack today's slate, 11-game slate. But a lot of times we're looking back at yesterday. We're looking through results DB. We're looking to see what sharper players did, how you could then apply those concepts to future slates, not just today's slate, but overall slates in general, not just basketball even. MLB, NFL, any of those types of things. So that's why I come here. This is what I do. This is what I do in the morning. When I wake up, typically around 11 o'clock in the morning, I look on Results DB and I start studying. I go, okay, that was interesting. Who swapped here? Who did that? Right, okay, looks like this guy forgot about that, right? You take a look at some sharper players and see how they constructed lineups in GPPs. So I come here and learn with me in the mornings or listen to the podcast. There's a podcast feed. Subscribe on iTunes or whatever podcast player, wherever you get your podcasts. Search for the DFS pregame show. Feel free to rate and review it there. So okay, we already got the chat going up here. Michael Lingelfelter is gonna talk. I gotta move this down over here. Explain my thought process for my winning single entry lineup. I'll talk about that in a second. I know a lot of people yesterday were like, well, what's the difference between MME versus single entry, which really there isn't. Just field size matters, not necessarily how many entries you have. But here we go. Like Matt S., I have 3 tickets to the NBA Monster, 444. Tilt for building 3 lineups. Sharp field with ownership, well-projected plays. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about that. We're going through Matt Mears. PGAs, when there's a smaller player pool and not really many correlation for GPPs aside from projections, are you primarily leveraging ownership? Yes. PGA, there's really not much. There's really no correlation, right? So sometimes there's like, oh, long hitters do well at this course and short hitters, but a lot of times, if you back tested that all, you'll find short hitters that win there, and a lot of the times the correlation. Sometimes with the weather, if you get you could always do, the tee time correlation, because the late wave is going to hit a storm or something. Occasionally, you could do stuff like that. Okay, let's see. Tons of questions. Let me go over the review before we get tons of questions. So I know the YouTube people, I take care of you, but you don't have to just barge in and just answer my question. So let's pull up the cash game tracker from yesterday. Okay, I did well yesterday. We looked down here and not on DraftKings. DraftKings didn't kind of get there, but FanDuel did well. Yahoo did well, so all combined, an extra $700, $800, right around a little under $800 more into the bankroll. So you can see right here for cash games, I started with a $20,000 bankroll, which is a portion of my actual bankroll, and then playing 10% of it a day, and using the RG projections, and here you go. So doing very well on FanDuel, doing decently on DK. As long as I'm above 55% in this win column over here, that means I'm profitable, right? Because of the rake. And then Yahoo, I'm kind of catching up there. It's kind of hard to get soft action, good volume there. I'm not going to just start taking six mans with like five of the sharper players. So here we go with the cash game stuff. But everyone wants to talk about the GPPs yesterday, right? GPPs yesterday, RotoGrinders. We did it all. We did it all. Squirrel Patrol on FanDuel took down the main GPP for 100,000. Eric Beimford came in second in one of the smaller high entry ones for 40,000. He also won the Thunderdome on DK for 50,000. And Crafty Lefty, who stops by in our chat on RG Discord every so often. Crafty Lefty, he won the large field GPP on DraftKings for $100,000. So it feels like I'm inadequate to show my little win, my little $5,000 win, because I've been focusing a lot on now. In the new year, one of my resolutions was to focus more on small field type of play. Single entry 3 max, but it doesn't have to be 3 max. It could be 10 max, but a little bit higher stakes. Like this is the $100. This is the smaller $100 Showtime. So it's a 330 field, 330 player contest. It's a single entry, but I'm focusing more. Yesterday, I played cash and I played 5 lineups. I played the mid-range jumper, the $40. I played the main Showtime. Basically, I played the 250, the 100, the 100, and the 240s. And I just hand-built 5 lineups. I don't need an optimizer for that. I hand-built for so long that I don't need a tool to do it for me. The tool is there just for efficiency's sake. So here's my lineup. And people wanted to talk about like, how did I get to the lineup? Okay. First off, get projections. Okay. I can't do any of this without RG premium projections. You could sign up to premium, rotogrinders.com/premium, or click on the link in the description, and you get $10 off your first month. If it wasn't for the projections team are the basketball people. They're the model people, right? Jamino and his model, great. And then you got Meansy, you got Tuttle, you got SBK, you got Reeves, you got Alan Lem. You got a Dodo. They know they're looking anytime there's a new starting lineup. Anytime that we saw yesterday, Paul George, he's questionable. What happens then, right? How many minutes is someone going to get? Like those types of things. How much usage? Now that George is out, Kennard's going to be in the first unit. Now who's going to get the usage in the second unit? Like that's what they're figuring out. That's what our team at RotoGrinders does. I trust them. So I wait for them to update the projections, and then I just trust the projections, right? So they're going to put in the minutes. They're going to figure out the usage and everything. And then the model is going to go through all the predictive variables and give me the range of outcomes of the simulation, and boom, there you go. So, like, without projections, I can't do any of this, right? I don't look at matchups. I don't even know the totals of the game most of the time. I don't know the spreads. I don't know who's going to blow out who. I don't know any of this. I just look at the projections. That's why you get that answer. When people ask me about players, they're like, you're being a bit of an asshole by saying, look at the projections. Like, dude, that's what I would look at. Like, that's, ask Andy. Ask Andy a basketball question. Me, I'm a the names on the spreadsheet person. So if you're going to tell me, if you're going to ask me, who do you like, CJ McCollum or D'Angelo Russell? It's like, whatever the projections say, right? There's the answer sheet for me. You just go straight to the horse's mouth by doing this. So this was the $100 Showtime and hand-built lineup. See, you could win. See, I like the fact you could win with snowflakes, even in the smaller field stuff, right? So, and also you don't have to get like super, I didn't need Jared Allen, right? I didn't need Jared Allen. I didn't even need Kawhi, right? I didn't need I needed Hernan Gomez. But you don't need like the 2% owned guy that gets 50 points. In large field, you do. In large field, you kind of have to have the nuts to some extent. So thought process. Josh McGuire, just quickly answer the question. Oh, it's all I can't ever move this up or down depending on the screen on my broadcast software. Just signed up for premium on Roto. How do I properly use the optimizer to build lineups that are full of heavy owned players? Is there easy tool to use? Yeah, we have tons of videos. on how to use lineup HQ. There are free videos that I've done. You can find that on the RotoGrinders YouTube channel or my YouTube channel. I have a whole RotoGrinders tutorial playlist. But if you're a premium member, go to the videos page, under tutorials, click on tutorials, and scroll. You'll find tons of premium videos that I did, Britt did, Squirrel Patrol did, Andy did, everyone did. So to learn how to build GPP lineups with Lineup HQ. Okay. So yesterday, we had two interesting things yesterday. Yesterday we had Durant being out, but we knew that, right? We came into the slate and we knew Durant was going to be out. So, but the thing is that we didn't know what the Nets starting lineup was going to be, right? Before the slate start, we're going, okay, it's going to be Kyrie, it's going to be Joe Harris, it's going to be probably Jeff Green, DeAndre Jordan. We don't know. Maybe LeVert doesn't start. Maybe LeVert is the guy off the bench, but he closes the halves. So we kind of have a sense of that. And then the Nets announced the starting lineup. Joe Harris wasn't in it, right? Bruce Brown comes from the dead, right? He DNP'd. He didn't even play. He wasn't even in the rotation, and now he's starting. So now you have to figure out what the hell is going on. You have Irving, you have Brown, you have Taurean Prince, Jeff Green, and Jarrett Allen starting, and you're going, oh, is Joe Harris just not playing? Is he coming off the bench? You have no idea. So now everything's up in flux. Now people are just asking, what the hell's going on? So, our team just got together and said that, who knows what this minutes, the variance on these minutes could be ridiculous. So, yeah, you could play Bruce Brown. You could play Taurean Prince. You could play Jeff Green. You could play a lot of these guys, but that range of outcomes is going to be much wider. But I knew that the Nets were going to be popular, right, because of Durant being out. And I knew, most people, the chalk build would have Kyrie and Jokic, because the center position yesterday was kind of, you played Ed Davis for value. I mean, that's how bad it was. People played Ed Davis. I mean, I played him in cash, but, people played that. So most likely you're going to see Kyrie Irving and Jokic lineups, which means that mid-price centers, because most people were going to either go up to Jokic or go down to an Ed Davis type, Jeff Green in the center spot. So, and in the guard spot, people were going to go up to Kyrie Irving. So that was the construction that most people were going to use, and then fill out cheap nets and Horton Tucker, I guess, right, in a shooting a small forward spot, because he wasn't horribly projected. It's a 5-game slate. So basically, all of the other higher-priced guards were going to be underowned because of that. So guys like Lillard, McCollum, DeRozan, well, DeRozan's now at forward positions, Russell, all those types of guys. Levine, White. Levine was owned, though. So Levine, it was somewhere in the middle of ownership. So, this is where, leverage exists. So if you don't play Kyrie, then you're most likely not going to play Mitchell or Gobert, right? And you're probably not going to play the cheap Nets either. So it's kind of how do I X out that game? Do I play that game or do I X out that game? I wanted to get off the chalk construction of basically Kyrie plus Jokic, cheap Nets, right? And then fill it out. That was going to be the kind of the chalkier type of stuff. I could probably go down and find, here's Empire Maker, right? He uses his cash lineup and everything, right? So this was the chalk build, right? Obviously now Leonard, once he swapped off, we'll talk about that in a second. So this was the chalk build, or playing 4 nets, 3 or 4 nets, Ed Davis, Jokic, this was the build. So when you're playing GPPs, you need to identify what the chalk build is, because that's what you're leveraging off of. A lot of people think in terms of, oh, I'm going to play exactly this, and then instead of playing Taurean Prince, I'm going to play PJ Dozier. You're not getting much leverage doing that, right? It's the same lineup, just with another guy that's only going to score 15 points, right? Oh, well, if PJ Dozier scores 17 and Prince scores 13, that means I win a GPP. No, you're only leveraged off of one person on the line. You didn't do anything. You really didn't gain that much by doing so. So you take a look at this type of lineup. People wanted single entry advice. This is very good for hand building single entry and just learning the concepts so that when you are playing 20, 50, 100 entries, you could tell the optimizer how to build these types of lineups. So it's not a matter of the optimizer doesn't tell you what to do. It doesn't tell you what to do. It's only a calculator that you put in the inputs and then it does whatever you want it to do. So when you're saying, oh, I'm getting a lot of this guy, it's like it doesn't know. It's like you're based on your constraints and your groups and your settings, like that's those are the highest projected lineups based on that. But you have to tell it that, well, in my Kyrie Irving lineups, don't play Donovan Mitchell, right? That type of thing. In these don't play Jokic and Irving in the same lineup. Those types of things you have to tell it. It doesn't know. So I look at this chalk construction. and go, okay, well, if I'm going to fade, I'm going to either fade one of Irving or Jokic, right? I don't want to be part of this chalk construction with all this ownership, right? Levine, this is in a single entry, right? 47% of Kawhi, 40 on Levine, 41 on Jokic. I mean, like, Torian Prince was 42%. Jeff Green was 37%. It's like, how do I avoid? I was thinking in terms of how do I avoid cheap nets? So I'm like, okay, let me think of how I could build by avoiding cheap nets. But then by doing so, I need to play guys like Horton Tucker, Batum, and Hernangomez. Okay? So if I can't fill this in, I still need a shooting guard, right? I'm still stuck with a Bruce Brown there, right? I'm still stuck because if I keep this construction, like I can't play one of Irving or Jokic by avoiding cheap nets. So I have to decide, am I going to fade Irving or Jokic in this lineup, right? I decided since I'm fading cheap nets, why don't I just fade all of them, right? Why not just fade them all? But fade a 53% on Kyrie Irving. There were ceiling guards available. I mentioned all those guards. All those, yes, Kyrie was projected higher, but not to the extent higher that Kyrie is 53% owned and McCollum is 20% owned and Russell's 13% owned, right? Does Russell beat Kyrie? Does Kyrie beat Russell 4 times more often? No. I mean, he beats him more often, but not 4 times more often. So I thought there was more leverage at the guard spots. So that's why I take Kyrie out of the lineup. I go, okay, if I'm not playing Kyrie, I'm not playing cheap nets. That means I'm probably not playing the Jazz either, right? Right? Because they're kind of correlated in the same game. If Kyrie does well, Donovan Mitchell probably does well. And, you hope for a blowout or something, which ended up happening. Or the production gets spread out or whatever. So I got rid of that game completely. So now if I got rid of that game, how do I build my lineup? So I'm like, if I'm going to play Jokic in the center spot, because I faded Kyrie, so I don't need to also fade a 41% owned Jokic. So I'm like, okay, well, if I'm going to play Jokic, I should play players on the other side of the game. It's a 5-game slate. There's not many options. So I need a cheap guy. I need a cheap guy. Okay, give me Hernangomez. He's on the Wolves. He's opposed to the Nuggets. Give me one of those leverage guards off of Kyrie Irving. Give me D'Angelo Russell. So now I have my little 2-1 little stacky stack here. Russell plus Hernangomez plus Jokic, right? Because I decided to play Jokic. So if I played Kyrie, then I probably wouldn't have played Russell or Hernangomez, right? It would have been cheap nets and Gobert there. So here you go. So Jokic plus Russell plus Hernangomez. And then I think in terms of, okay, well, I want to play Levine or White. And I also want to play Lillard or McCollum, the guards that will get less ownership because Kyrie Irving is chalk in that position. So what fit in this lineup was McCollum plus Kobe White, right? And Kobe White was less owned than Levine. So that's kind of a little bit of leverage there, right? And then at that point, you just fill out your lineup. At that point, I'm like, okay, how do I fill out this lineup without using cheap nets? I'm like, okay, Horton Tucker for 3,400. Batum for 4,600 and Cantor for 5,400. And then there you go. They projected well enough. It's not like THT projected well, but still better than the garbage players, right? Batum, even before George was out, projected better than the garbage players. And same for Cantor, right? On a 5-game slate, my threshold for how well they project is going to be lower. But there you go. And I didn't use a tool for this. That's how I put my lineup. But I'm looking at projections to see, like, I only want to use a pool of at least decently projected players. I wasn't going to play, the third guys off the bench or anything for value, especially when we had cheap nets already at value, pseudo value. But I mean, the cheap nets weren't all that much better than THT or Batum or any of these other guys. Hernangomez Wasn't that much better. Oh, just because Durant's out. Because everyone's been thinking that the whole day. Durant's out, I'm playing Nets. Durant's out, I'm playing Nets. Durant out, I'm playing Nets. And what ended up happening is that George got downgraded to questionable after lock, and then a lot of people didn't have the option to get Kawhi, right? A lot of people didn't because you had Kyrie, you played too much of the game, right? The Kyrie Mitchell lineups, you had to sacrifice Jokic in order to get Kawhi because you already spent too much of your salary, right? Or you didn't have a spot in your, you didn't have a small forward spot in your lineup. So, I mean, is this one of these things that you have to plan for? No. No one had any clue Paul George was not going to play tomorrow until after lock. Until he downgraded to questionable after lock. So you couldn't have planned for it. So if you ended up with I stacked the first game and I lost because, people, that's the value of optionality. So sometimes the unexpected happens. So when you're thinking in terms of well, I could do this early, I could do this late. If it's 50-50, settle for the late stuff because you never know what's going to happen with the news. So let me go back into the YouTube chat. While I'm looking through the YouTube chat, hit the thumbs up button. Give me the thumbs. Keep the apple juice cold. I don't even know if it is. Let me check. Have you been hitting the thumbs up button? Yeah, it's pretty cold. Pretty damn cold. Let's see. Talking about single entry GPPs, any type of GPPs. Now, people are asking in the chat if I made any pivots to Kawhi or Lou Will. No, not in this lineup. I played cash, and then I played 5 lineups. In other lineups, I moved. This wasn't the only lineup that I played. I played 4 lineups in other single entry 3-max type of contests, and they didn't get there. I think I didn't have the option. I didn't even think I moved to Kawhi in any of them. I moved to Lou Williams or Batum, stuff like that. It's just that I was set. Most of my lineups were set on either the Portland Chicago game. So if I played Kawhi, it would break that up. I wanted to play either McCollum Lillard or Levine White. So that was my strategy on the slate to begin with, to leverage off a guard. And then I had Jokic. By the time I thought about switching, I didn't have a spot, right? So I played cheap stuff. I had Kennard, a fill-in. I changed the fill-in type of guys. Let's see. Let's see through the chat. Jacob Calloway asks a game theory question, which, everything is. Small stakes, small field, 4K entries, NBA, should I be closer to the optimal in a weak, smaller field? No. The bigger the contest size, the further away that you should be from optimal, as long as you're gaining leverage and you have some correlation. It doesn't matter. Don't worry so much about correlation in NBA, but it's a tiebreaker. I talk about, I'm getting both sides of a game and those types of things. The larger the slate size, the less that's important, right? 11-game slate tonight. You probably don't have to. I'm going to play one guy on one side, 2 guys on the other side on a 5-game slate. How many options do you have? I'd rather choose guys in the same game and hope that game blows up, right? Than anything else, because there's only 5 games to choose from. People are asking why Cantor, because he fit. He projected well enough and he fit. That's it. Sometimes that's it, right? Everything that I went through has nothing to do with basketball. Right? I just looked at projections. When I look at projections, I eliminate all the garbage players, right? I take a look at yesterday's slate. I'm not playing anyone that projects I'm going to scroll down here. This is today's slate, right? I'm going to go here, sort by RGV, which is salary adjusted value, plus minus, right? Where is this? Where am I going? Okay. So I'm going to go, these are the good projected guys, right? Up top, right? Oh, okay. These are the good plays, right? I go over here, if guys at the bottom, like today, I will not be playing. I'm not be playing Brandon Goodwin, right? I'm not gonna be playing that shit, right? I'm not gonna be playing Nemanja Bjelica, right? He projects horribly, right? So these guys down here, Aaron Baines, no, based on our current projections, I'm not playing. Doug McDermott, right? Look how many of these guys down here that really don't project all that well for the context of the slate. Now we start moving up to Like over here, like maybe -1, like once we get some smash percentages, at least in the double digits, like, okay, maybe I could fill Kelly Olynyk, maybe, right? Projects it well enough. Maybe who's this? Drew Holiday, 23%. Like, okay, it's a negative plus minus, but whatever, close enough. That projects decently enough. Maybe Jeremy Grant could find a lineup or two. Who knows? I don't know. I didn't look at the today's slate, but I'm like, these guys at least project well enough. But I mean, guys that are down here with like 0% smash ratings, right? 5%, like they're never making my lineups. Like I just X them out. So on yesterday's slate, you X out all those players. I mean, you X out all those players. You still get some players, right? Cantor was good. Cantor was like right on the line of that for 5,400. So that means he's eligible to me. That means he's viable to me. He could fit in somewhere depending on the lineup, and he just happened to fit here, and he's correlated, right? I was playing McCollum and Cantor from the Blazers and White from the Bulls, so it made sense. I had 5,400 in this spot, and it could have been other people, right? But why not play Cantor? I'm already playing two guys from the game, right? Back and forth. That's the way it goes. But you have to condense your pool to like who are the best projected players. That's why you use projections. Once I see who are the best projected players on an 11-game slate, you may have 80, 100 people that could be viable, could be, and then you have to go from there. Like where's the best place to get leverage? Okay, it's here. What are the weak positions? Is small forward weak today? Okay, well I see where people are going here. Is center strong? Oh, okay. A lot of people are going to congregate here. Maybe I could go in a different direction. So you could look through all that, but you still need projections to begin with to know like who the better projected plays, and that's typically the players that are going to be the most owned also, right? It's kind of weird. It's not necessarily groupthink in NBA. Most NBA, all sharp NBA players use projections to some extent because that's what everyone else uses. Why not? The model may be slightly different, right? Maybe different variables, different tweaks here or there. Maybe you think a guy's going to get one extra minute versus another guy. I mean, yeah, that stuff happens. But for the most part, you just use the projections and you're done. You're done. You don't have to. How much research do you have to do? Smokey Bear watched your NBA live stream for the first time yesterday and he 20x'd. Thanks for the great insight. Way to go, Smokey Bear. 20x. It's all a comparison, right? You don't have to win $1 million, right? Well, you couldn't win $1 million yesterday. New to NBA, I was told defense matters. You were told wrong. Does defense matter, or was Allen's performance an outlier? Allen got there because DeAndre Jordan had 4 fouls in 4 minutes. So, I mean, he just got all the minutes. Like, here, you're new to NBA, Johnny. Minutes equal money, right? If you're going to be on the court for 35 minutes, when you normally, for your price, would only be on the court for 24 minutes, you're probably going to crush, right? Right? When you get 11 extra minutes or something? Yeah, so I think it's more like that. But the defensive efficiency is factored into the projections. And most people think that it matters. I'm not saying that it doesn't matter, but it doesn't matter as much as you think. And it's already factored in there. That's why I don't care. I don't look at matchups because the RG projections already have it accounted for. The totals of the games are already accounted for. Everything's already accounted for in the projections. So all I need to know is to give me the range of outcomes and I'm good. That's it. Seeing how Kyrie played in only 3 quarters, do you think it was a mistake to fade him or a likelihood that it was worth it? Well, there's a chance that happens. And it happened yesterday. Going into that first quarter, if you were in the RotoGrinders Discord, which you can be if you're a premium member, I'm in there all the time. So sign up for premium, rotogrinders.com/premium, or click on the link in the description for $10 off your first month. That first quarter, like everyone in the Discord was like, no Kyrie, no cash. You ain't gonna win. You ain't gonna win nothing without Kyrie Irving. It's high-owned Kyrie Irving. And, nope, you didn't need him, right? Didn't play the fourth quarter at all. They blew him out. That's going to be part of his range of outcomes. So it's not a matter of, look, in my lineup, I faded Kyrie Irving. I also played a lineup where I played Kyrie Irving. It's not a matter of fading or playing. It's a matter of building a lineup that's based on an outcome, not that you're predicting one. This lineup predicts the fact that no one from the Nets Jazz game is like optimal, right? Doesn't mean that the game does badly or anything, but that is not going to be necessary. Doesn't mean it's a blowout, no, but I would love for this lineup would love for it to be a blowout, right? It would love this lineup. But I also had a lineup where I played Kyrie Irving, Donovan Mitchell, and Rudy Gobert. I played 5 lineups, so it's not like so 20% of my lineups, one of them was I'm playing those guys. And then one is I'm not playing those guys. So it's not a matter of do you fade or do you not. If you're only playing one lineup, yeah, then you have to decide. If you're playing 2 lineups, you could build one lineup that is for one case and one for the complete opposite. That's perfectly, and they both could project well. They both could have enough leverage, and they both could be about equal to each other. Like that's how you do thinking about lineups and not players. It's not a matter when people ask, I said before in the Discord before the slate started, because people were asking me stuff. What are you doing here? And I said I'm probably fading Kyrie in GPP. And I'm playing, and I told him I'm playing 5 lineups. If I'm playing 100 lineups, I'm probably not fading anyone. But I'm playing 5 lineups, probably fading. It turns out I played him in 1 lineup out of 5. And people thought I was nuts. Like, how do you fade Kyrie Irving with no Durant in this garbage starting lineup? I'm like, well, he's going to be 50+% owned. So, should he be 50+% owned when we got Lillard, McCollum, Russell, Levine, White, all these other guards? Paul George at the time, right? I'm like, I'm gonna. That's the easiest place for me to get leverage. The 2 easiest places to get leverage on yesterday's slate was Kyrie Irving and Nikola Jokic. The problem with Jokic is that if you don't play him, the center pool gets pretty bad. so that's why I figured there's guards to play. So I'm more likely to fade Kyrie. But it's not because I didn't think he was going to do well. I don't care whether or not he does well. I care how do I maximize my chance of winning first place. That's it. And I think if Kyrie doesn't have as great of a game as everyone thinks, I maximize my chance of winning first place. How do I build a lineup that succeeds when Kyrie doesn't get 60 points? And here you go. You're looking at it. You're looking at it. Okay. In the same contest you won, I switched from Porter and Levine to Kawhi and Lou Will. Wasn't the right move after. No, that was the right move. Kawhi, if we knew beforehand that George was going to sit, Kawhi was the best projected player on the slate. You'd play Kawhi over Kyrie Irving if you were able to, right? Well, most likely you weren't going to play Jokic anymore. If we built this before the slate, if you built the chalk construction, it most probably would have been Irving plus Kawhi and no Jokic. And you played, Ed Davis in that spot. Or you couldn't get all 3 of them in. But it would be something like that. That's how well Kawhi projected once George came out. So that's why you see, I pulled up in results DB. I mean, take a look at Kawhi's ownership amongst sharper players. I put some that maybe didn't change as much. He was 33% owned in the big GPP on DraftKings. But look, that's all late swap. Take a look at this. JK, 83%, 72%, 90%, 71%. These guys didn't have this much Kawhi at 7:30 Eastern, right? They had this much Kawhi at 8:45 Eastern because they swapped the hell out of it. Look, Lou Williams, 100%. Just jam him in. JK, 123, just jam him in. Lou Williams, all these, some people did, but most had some, right? Lou Williams was really not much of a play before George was ruled out. So like all of this is all late swap. All of this is late swap. We could even take a look at stuff like if you had Bruce Brown in your lineup, if you had too many of those cheap nets in your lineup, you weren't able to really make a lot of these swaps. But some did. Like we see most of the guys, the people, the users that didn't have as much of Kawhi is because they had too much of the early games. They weren't, right? When you have 64% Kyle Anderson in your small forward spot, it's kind of hard to get to Kawhi, right? If you're doing stuff like that. If you have Anthony Davis 57%, Grey Poupon, it's kind of hard. Well, he got to Kawhi, but he probably had to get off of Jokic, right? He only had 8% Jokic, right? So there you go. The power of late swap. If you didn't late swap last night, if you didn't even think about it, you have to. These are players. These are top sharp GPP players that play 150 lineups, and they're able to swap, right? They're taking advantage of any edge that they could get throughout the night, rebuilding their lineups to maximize for any new information that you get. So you should be doing to NBA DFS is almost like a job, right? You have to if you find this type of stuff fun. I find it fun. It's a little bit stressful. Who's in, who's out? Projections update. You got 10 minutes to switch stuff. You're thinking, should I do this? Should I stay here? Should I do that? Yes, but that's kind of fun. At least it's something to do throughout the night. You're not just just watching, right? There's always something going on in your mind. Should I switch here? Is this guy going to play? LeBron's always going to be questionable, so you never know, right? Most likely he plays, but it's going to be like that, like every day. That's what NBA DFS is. So if you're not late swapping, you're really getting. I say this all the time. It's negative EV to not late swap. Okay, going through chat. Probably a dumb question. No, nothing's a dumb question. There's only stupid people. No stupid questions, only stupid people. Probably a dumb question, but is the chalk lineup picked solely off of high projected points? Yeah, of course. Why not? What else would you be doing? I mean, if I take a look right now, like this is, here you go. Here you go. These are the early projections, 10 a.m. in the morning. Okay? 10 a.m. It's not going to matter. It's not going to matter. 7 hours from now, all these projections will change. So look, based on our projections, here's the optimal lineup. Right? Ball, Halliburton, Kennard, Washington, Drummond, George, Batum, Gobert. There you go. 277.7 median. So it's mostly of the better projected points, right? I mean, that is what it is. That's what a cash lineup typically is. Now, if we run, for instance, 20 lineups, okay, I want to show you this for people that aren't aware. Okay, so here we go. These are the same, right? 277.7, 277.7, right? Okay, so this would be the top optimal median projected lineup. This is the second one. The second one, look at the difference between these two lineups. Okay, one's 277.7, one's 277.68. It's a difference of 0.02. That's like ridiculously small. And what players does it not have? So we have Ball. Halliburton, no. Kennard, yes. PJ Washington, yes. Drummond, yes. George, yes. Batum, yes. Gobert, no. So essentially this is a 2v2 of Halliburton plus Gobert or Brogdon plus George Hill. That would be the next projected lineup. Now let's go to the next one. Oh, look. It's only down by 0.1. 0.58. Right? So the difference between this top one and this third one is so small. And this one has Kelly Olynyk in it. Right? So it's a different players in there. Here's one that's 277.56. This has Bobby Portis and Patrick Beverley in it. Here we go. 277.48. This one has Tyrese Halliburton and Chris Middleton in it. 277.33. So, I mean, look, the difference between the first one, 277. Let's look for one median point. Okay? Let's go to build rules, and I'm just going to put it on, let's say, 50. Just so we get a bunch of lineups. This is just default settings. There's no constraints, no nothing. Right? So we're running 50 lineups, just based on the 10 a.m. projections this morning, which probably need to be adjusted. So whoever wakes up in the morning has to come in on our projections team and start making adjustments. But look, lineup 1, 277.7. So how far down do we get to 276.7, which is one median point? Let's see, 276.7, 276.7, 276.7, there, 24. Okay, so between the top 24 lineups based on our projections, like there's only a difference of one median point in the grand scheme of a 276 point score, which is like less than a 1% difference in scoring in median. 24 different lineups, right, that have 2v2s and 3v3s galore. Any of them would be viable in pretty much any of them would be viable in cash games. And I mean, the differences between them are going to be low. The lower, this lineup 24 probably will show a lower ROI over time than the top one. But the difference between the 1 and 2, that 0.02 difference, yes, that'll be like you'll have 1 cent difference every year. Like that's the difference in EV, right? Like if you played that lineup and the second lineup 1,000 times, you'd see the difference in how much money you get back is like 2 cents, right? Yeah, yes, the top one gets 2 extra cents. There you go. You don't realize that EV until you run it like 1,000,000 times. But we don't have. That's not realistic. So really, the differences between number 1 and number 2 and number 3 and number 4, like some of these up here, are so marginal that if you played those lineups in cash games, I don't blame. I mean, like, what much of the difference is there? There isn't that much. Now, once you get down to the 50th, you're still at 276.28. You're still a 1.5 off the median. Like, this is still fine. I mean, like, it's still fine. We've gone through 50 lineups, and I would look at this and go, okay, you're not crazy. Like, that's not necessarily. I probably don't need to jam in Giannis on the slate with Mason Plumlee, but if you played this, if I saw this in cash games, I wouldn't be shocked or anything, right? And look how many combinations there are. So that's why I mean that lineups, not players. I keep on coming back to lineups, not players. I'm looking at lineups, not like, do I play Kevin Huerter? Like, I don't know. Kevin Huerter, in this lineup, it makes sense, apparently. That's what the projection says, and that's what it makes sense in. So, sure, you're playing Kevin Huerter in your shooting guard spot in this lineup. Whether or not he's going to do well, who knows? I don't know. He has a range of outcomes. Based on his median, he should be in this type of lineup. And that's it. So that's lineups, not players, for cash games, at least. Now, once you start saying, where do I find leverage? I'm going to play a lot of this guy versus that guy. Then you start building lineups that have lower medians, of course. But you get rewarded if they hit their ceiling. So, like, you're not going after a double up. You're going after first place in a large field GPP. So you could sacrifice median for the sake of leverage. Oh, let's see. Going through the YouTube chat. Hit that thumbs up button. Give me the thumbs. Let me check the apple juice. The outside typically doesn't stay cold. No, you've been doing pretty well. We're only up to 85 likes. Okay, it just should be warm. We have to get triple digits at least on the likes, on the thumbs. Come on. Let's see. Jacob Calloway asks, is it more important to have a lineup that has a higher overall product of smash percentage or overall better point per dollar after applying lineup construction strategy? For GPPs, I would probably say smash percentage. But, I mean, all those figures go hand in hand. Typically, the players that have high point per dollar, high smash, high salary adjusted value plus minus are very similar, are usually connected to some extent to each other, right? So is there one that is more important? Probably not, but I'd rely more on, in GPPs, I'd probably rely more on smash percentage, the percentile in which he hits a GPP target score, more so than point per dollar. But, I mean, it really depends on the size of the contest. In large field, definitely. In smaller field, maybe you don't need a smash out of everyone. So maybe you side with the salary adjusted value or the point per dollar. So like in my 330-man contest, I don't need all 8 of my guys to smash. I won with the snowflake. Okay? I won with a guy with a snowflake in my lineup. It's very rare that happens in large field GPPs. So in large field GPPs, you need to, like, everyone needs to smash pretty much. The smaller field, maybe you don't have to worry about that as much. PJ Frappier asks, what do you make of all these blowouts? What do I make of them? I don't know. I don't make of anything of them. I know the sample size is small, but is it something you are considering in your process? Possibly more mini game stacks? Well, I correlate as it is. Most of the time, when given the choice, if I'm going to play Giannis in a game, I'm probably going to play a guy on the other side of the game, right? If I'm playing Luka, and I'm probably going to play another guy from the other side of the game, right? I already build like that to begin with. The correlations are weak. Just like you don't have to do this, especially on large slates, like 11-game slates tonight. You don't have to. But I tend to side. At least me personally, I tend to over-correlate than under-correlate. And sometimes that's a weakness. So some sharper players would say that that's a leak. That I weigh correlation a little too much. Because it's very weak in the NBA. That I should be weighing projection more so than correlation. But I'm kind of doing that already. If I'm gonna play Embiid tonight, I'm gonna probably play someone on the Wizards, right? Do something like that, right? If the game blows out, the lineup's dead. So I'd rather have a lineup. If I'm playing 20 lineups, 50 lineups, I'd rather have a lineup that has all snowflakes in it than have a lineup with 6 flame emojis as a snowflake, right? I don't want these guys infecting my other lineups. So like if I'm gonna play Drummond, right, against Orlando. And I want to have an Orlando player in my pool as well. Put them together. So if the game blows out, if the game duds, it just blows up that lineup. It doesn't. I could have lineups that have neither of those players in it, and those still have a chance. So yes, you can do that, but it's not the be-all, end-all. It's not something that I'm focused on. Michael Lingelfelter, with as many blowouts this year as you're using bench players to leverage for chalk starting players. On large slates, no. On short slates, that's more of a consideration. If you're playing 2 or 3 game slates, absolutely. Because what options do you have? You really don't have many options. 11-game slates, no. On 11-game slates, you could find, on larger slates, even 6, 7-game slates, you could find guys that are low owned that are still good. Look, D'Angelo Russell was, 12% owned last night? He's a good player. Just that he was at a price range that people were favoring other players in. I'm not one that looks for the guy that's going to get blowout run. You have to hit 3 times in order for that to work. Okay? If you're going to try to find who plays in a blowout, you're going to get that's negative EV over time. You may get it right once in a blue moon, but I don't think that way at all. Because you have to hit 3 times. 1, the game needs to blow out. Okay? On the right, it has to blow out on the right side also, right? Has to blow out. Then that guy needs to get extra minutes because of that opportunity. Because sometimes it blows out and it's the last 4 minutes of the game and you don't get many extra minutes. And then in those minutes has to put up a ceiling game, right? A 3K player still has to put up a minimum of 25 points or something to be relevant in GPPs most of the time. So the guy that normally would get 16 minutes has to now get 24 minutes and in those extra 8 minutes be able to go on fire. You have to hit 3 times. I don't bother looking at those things. If the game blows out, then I'm dead. On larger slates, I have so many more options that I could play good players that are going to be low owned. That I don't need to find bad players that are going to be low owned. So that's me personally. Maybe other people do. If you look at sharp players lineups, if you go through results CDB, you will rarely find those players. You rarely find back to the bench, third point guard, those types of the backup center, for a team like Embiid, someone playing Dwight Howard or something, you rarely see. On small slates, sure, but on anything that has any substance type of side, even on 5-game slates, you don't see that much, right? Because look, Jonas Valanciunas was 2% owned. You could play him at 2% owned rather than go down and play Jordan McLaughlin, right? Oh, I'm going to play Chris Chiozza. Why? Why do that to yourself? It's not going to work. 99% of the time, you're going to waste too much money at that problem. Oh, let's see. Going through the chat. Justin Sports asks, Jordan, real quick, sorry to go back to bankroll stuff. No, don't be sorry. Ask whatever you want, right? Hashtag ask whatever you want. It's perfectly fine. This is the time to ask whatever you want. If we go back and forth to different stuff, that's fine. You're on YouTube. You're hitting the thumbs up button. You're the priority, dude, okay? That's the way it is. People that watch this later, people that are going to listen on the podcast feed, screw them, right? They weren't here. So if you're listening on the podcast right now and you're like, well, why they keep on skipping around and going and going to talk about that thing? Well, then you got to show up. You got to show up to keep this show on its to go. Oh, well, they didn't even talk about today's slate. It's what's there to talk about? It's 11 games and everything's going to change. So let's get back to this. What's a good ITM win rate and a good ROI? What's to be considered a winning player? Well, In cash games, it's easy to say. And GPPs, it could be God knows what, right? GPP is most of your ROI comes from winning one. So if you haven't won one yet, it's going to look pretty bad. But in cash games, a good ITM would be like 58%. Anything over 55% beats the rake. So if I would consider a 58% in cash games, double ups, head to heads, those types of things. If you have a 58% win rate, ITM, in the money, that's a roto tracker term, I would consider that good. And an ROI of 2%, right? 3%. It depends on the stakes that you play. You would be good. I would say over a large sample size. If you just started playing NBA, it's been 2.5 weeks, like you can't go by that, right? You could lose for the next 2 weeks straight and be a losing player. Let's see. Do you use median even for GPP, not ceiling? Yeah, it does. Most of these projections are fairly normal, distributed. We talked about distributions yesterday. I showed you what a normal distribution looks like. Most of them are normal enough that if you use floor versus median versus ceiling, you're not making that drastic of a difference. The players that project well are still the players that project well, right? The difference is in the lineups, maybe a half a point here and a half a point there. Do I have to get that precise? No. You can get that precise, but I don't buy at the time to care about half a points here and half a points there in GPPs. I care more about leverage. I care more, like, as long as all the players in my lineup and the lineup projects well enough, whether or not one projects a half a point higher than the other doesn't concern me as much. So feel free to use median. Feel free to use ceiling projections. They end up coming out kind of the same way anyway, right? You could tell. Should smaller money players, this is from Steve Waller, should smaller money players, $50 a day, stick to single entry plays for the best chance of winning? For the lowest variance, yes. You could play $50 a day and play in the large field stuff. Just understand that you're going to be bleeding a lot of money. You could build great lineups for it. It's just, obviously, it's very hard to win a large, 100,000 entry type of contest. So you could play every day this season and lose every single day. And then on the one day that you win $100,000. So, you could still do that. But it's gonna be hurtful on your bankroll. You have to have a big enough bankroll to sustain that, which you can. That's what I did. I played the 20 maxes, $4, whatever. I wouldn't play 20 max. I'd play 5 lineups into it. Or I'd play the large field GPP, but I'd play 10 lineups into it. You don't have to play 150. And build lineups that can win those tournaments. Don't be scared. If you're going to play with scared money, like if you're like, oh, I need the cash, then play single entry, play double ups, play smaller field stuff. If you're not going to build for large field contests, don't play them. You're going to bleed your money away. And what I mean by don't play the cash lineups. Don't play. You got to think in terms of, remember the YouTube, the Discord chat people. You're going to fade Kyrie. And I was doing that in small field. And people thought I was nuts. Yeah, you have to be uncomfortable. You have to say, well, this guy could just fail. I know he's going to be 60% owned, but he shouldn't be. He should probably only be 40% owned. So I'm going to make one lineup and play him in a large field GPP, and I'm going to fade him. And then he goes off for 65 points, and then you just have to be able to close your laptop and say, okay, I'm going to do this again tomorrow. Like that, you have to go in fully comfortable losing. Knowing that I'm building a lineup that is not optimal from a projection standpoint, but if, in this case, that this guy fails and that guy fails, this lineup has a great chance of winning first place. That won't happen every day. That 90% of the time it won't happen, right? And you're sitting there with nothing. But that's how you play large field GPPs. So if you're not willing to play that way, don't play them. Bluegrass Jeffs, I'm new to game theory. Can you explain 2v2 and 3v3 lineups? Well, those are just terms to describe the differences between two lineups. There's no game theory to them. Just like the difference between this lineup and this lineup is 2 players versus 2 players. So whenever you see the terminology 2v2, 1v1, 3v3, it just means that this lineup and this lineup share 6 players, and there's 2 players different from one another. So when you hear someone's like, oh, I lost on a 1v1. That means the lineup above them had the 7 same players and 1 different player from that person. Let's see. Right, Trudon FM says it very well sometimes. I think the 10K plus guys almost always need a bring back because they need so much production to smash their salary. Yeah, a lot of times I think that way. If there's a well projected player on the other side. But we see also with blowouts that a 10K guy could get 70 points and there's no one on the other side that gets there, right? I mean, that can't happen. But yes, I am more likely, doesn't mean I always do it, I'm more likely to look at playing a guy from the other side of the game, the more expensive that the stud is. More inclined. Doesn't mean I do it all the time. Just everything in DFS is more likely or less likely, not a yes or a no. Is it true that in more sharper fields, Contrarian becomes more chalky, generally speaking? No. Actually, the opposite. Typically, the more sharper fields are smaller field contests, where you don't have to get that contrarian. You want to get some contrarian, but not that contrarian. So, for instance, Kyrie Irving last night in the contest that I was in, like we take a look at results DB. In the shoot around, which is the large field GPP, Kyrie Irving was 40% owned and Jokic was 34% owned. In my small field single entry contest, Irving, if we go back to where's Empire's lineup? Where's someone's lineup? Show me a lineup, someone. So I could get the ownership here. It's somewhere over the rainbow. Where'd he go? Oh, there he is, right there. Okay. See, look. So we see before in the large field contest, the large GPP, Kyrie was 40% owned, Jokic was 34%. My contest, Irving was 53% owned, and Jokic was 41% owned. So the chalk was chalkier. And because the chalk is chalkier, I get more relative value by fading them, right? Because more of the field has them. So that's exactly what my thought process is. When I say that in single entry contests, I am more contrarian, this is what I mean, right? I know that more players are going to have Irving. More players are going to have Jokic. More players are going to have Levine. So I get extra, there are more lineups with them. So if I get more points than those guys, I gain more places in the standings. That's why I could play a 12% White, 20% McCollum, 13%, right? I didn't play Kyrie Irving. And these guys did better. Russell did better. I gained 7 points on more of the field by playing Russell. I gained, 12% owned Kobe White, 42.50. Levine put up 40 for 1,300 more salary. So I was able to fit in more points. I had Batum at 9%. So Batum was 9% in this single entry, and Batum in the large field was 10%, right? And that was mostly during the late swaps, those types of things. But the chalk is chalkier in the single entry of the smaller field stuff. So so people don't get more contrarian. Yes, they may get one spot more contrarian. They build better projected lineups. Sharper players are more likely to build better projected lineups with some leverage point in it. But in general, the chalk becomes chalkier, which means it's easier to leverage off something in those types of contests. Corey Stevens asks, do I prefer larger slates or 5 to 7 game slates? I prefer larger slates. 11, that's a lot. I like the 9, give me 9 games. 9 games, that's good. I'm good with 9 games. I want as many leverage points as possible. I want as many options as possible. The more decisions that you need to make favors people that make better decisions. So I want more of them. When you have the smaller slates, when you have a 4-game slate, it's kind of hard to really screw it up that badly, right? There aren't many options. So, I'm going to just play this guy instead of that guy, but my lineup still kind of looks the same as everyone else's. In a large, today's 11-game slate, there's going to be numerous players in the mid-range, 7K, 8K, 9K range, that are going to be 5% or below owned. Like, it's a leverage smorgasbord, right? It's a buffet of leverage. So I like that. I like having those options. In a smaller slate, you don't. You don't get those. Let's see. Do you still leave 200 or more in salary on a DK on a slate this size? I mean, not necessarily. If it fills out that way, it fills out that way. I don't mind leaving 200 on the table. If it fits, it fits. Sometimes there's no other player that gives you any more projection for more salary. So you leave it there. You're probably not leaving 1,000 on the table. You're probably not doing that. Okay. Let's see. We only got a couple of... Oh, we're actually in overtime now. If the slate locked in 10 minutes, would you be playing Paul George or would you fade like Kyrie? Are we talking about this past slate, Matthew P? Would you fade? No, I still would have faded. Kyrie was going to be owned anyway. That was my strategy on that slate for that lineup. Was to fade Kyrie and play the other guards. George would have been one of those other guards also. So yes. So I could have done that as well. Mike B. Okay, here's you need to do some math. You need to do some just basic math concepts, Mike B. Looking at the quarter arcade and the higher stakes, it seems players in the quarter arcade, are getting higher scores. Why? It's small. The first place amongst a lot of entries is always going to be higher. You have more opportunity. There's more entries. Like that, this is the biggest misconception of like, I won with the 334. Yeah, because I'm only playing against 333 opponents. In the quarter arcade, you're playing against, who knows, how many, let's see, let's go down. Do we have the quarter arcade here? We have the mini-max, the 150 mini-max here. That's 59,500 entries, okay? So let's take a look at the mini-max. So this is a 50-cent contest, right? Okay, no, they didn't even update. They didn't update this yet. So we'll have to look at it later. They didn't update it here. But you take a look at the smaller stakes. Let's see, the AN1, that is 83,000 entries. Right? The winning score was 385. Right? Based on this is what it is. Patrick Beverley was needed. Right? 1%. Look at this lineup in the AN1. It's a $1 contest. Beverley, Russell, Barton, Hernangomez, Allen, Lillard, Temple, Jokic. Pretty much the nuts. Right? Jokic, you got Jokic's 70, you got Allen's 54, you got Hernangomez's 46, you got Russell's 58, and you got Beverly's 48. Like, especially at 1% ownership. There's just so many, Mike, there's just so many more entries. Like, this lineup doesn't exist because there's 83,000 people. It's not the stakes that matter. It's just that there's a lot more lineups to compete against. The likelihood of someone building this lineup in out of 333 people is less. This is why it's hard to win the Millie Maker, but not that hard to win the Thunderdome. If you wanted to play the 5,300 Thunderdome, you could reasonably win that. It's a 30-man contest. It's not hard. You don't need a lot. You don't need a big score. You just have to beat out the 29 other people in that contest, the sharpest players in the world in that contest. But they're not building lineups to score 385 points. They just have to beat 29 people. So you shouldn't be building a line. This is not a lineup that you build for the Thunderdome, right? You don't build lineups that you have to get lucky on Allen. You're not playing Kyrie, and you're playing Lillard. You're playing none of the cheap nets. Like, because you don't need a 385-point score to win the Thunderdome. You don't need that. So you shouldn't build lineup. Coming in first by 100 points doesn't get you anything more. So build a lineup that could beat 29 people. So that's the reason. It's not the stakes. It's the field size. If the Thunderdome was an 83,000 person contest, you'd see that score win because there's so many more lineups in there. Let's see. Going through the questions. Can we get one more before we get out of here? As always, I'm here every morning at 11 in the morning. So if I don't get to your question today, feel free to come by and post it again. Go back to previous shows. I guarantee you, some of the regulars here, they're going to be on YouTube, hitting that thumbs up button. In the morning, they're going to get sick of me answering the same questions over and over again. Right? Next week, I'll be answering the same exact question I answered the Tuesday before that. But that's fine. That's what this show is for. So it also allows you to get concepts a little bit more drilled into your heads. So come tomorrow and ask your question. Okay, Michael Hitchcock, should lineups in 600-person contests be different than lineups in 100-person contests? Technically, yes, but they probably don't look all that much different. Like the difference between a 100-person contest and a 600-person contest is probably not all that drastic. So I wouldn't concern myself as much about that. But the difference between a 600-person contest and an 83,000-person contest, yeah, that's dramatic, right? The difference between 600 and 100-person. 100-person, you could almost kind of put in your cash lineup. Almost. Like, that would still be fine. I wouldn't worry so much about the differences between 100 and 600. Bluegrass Jeff, I've learned more about DFS from this podcast in the last 2 days than I have the last 2 years playing. Well, thank you, Bluegrass Jeff. Just don't beat me in the contest now. I'm building better players. That's what I'm doing. Hopefully you don't come after me. Right, here's the same type of question. Jacob Calloway, would you treat a 5K field relatively the same as a 30K field in regards to how contrarian you build? Yeah, there would be somewhat of a difference, but not that dramatically. 5K field versus a 30K field, yeah. But just understand the concept. Don't get so concerned about what's the line. I'm playing a 2,000 field contest versus a 5,000. Just know the larger the contest, the more leverage you need. The smaller the contest, the less leverage you need. So that's it. Just think of it as a scale, not as an actual. Well, there's a difference between a 4,999-person contest and a 5,000-person contest. What's the difference between a 2,000 versus a 5,000? Just know that as you go up, think when you're building your lineups, what type of contest am I playing? Okay, I'm playing a 300-man contest. Okay, well then I don't have to go like nuts, but I still have to find leverage somewhere. I need to find a little bit. Right? Now, let's say you're building for the and one, the $1 83,000 entry contest. Now you're going into that going, okay, now you have to start thinking of who's the chalk and who am I fading, right? Like that's, how do I build lineups around fading chalky players? Doesn't mean you have to fade all the chalky players, but just how do I build around there, right? Because it's an 83,000-person contest. In a 300-person contest, you're probably thinking of like, where's my one leverage point and I'm good type of way. But you don't have to concern yourself, well, what's the difference between an 83,000-person contest and a 40,000-person contest? It's still really big. It's still really big. You should still probably be thinking that way. Let's see. Can we get one more question? One more question. Do I have a limit on how big a GPP field is? Do you typically stay under 1,000 entries? It depends on your style of play. I in the past, for most of my time playing DFS, I've been primarily a large field GPP player. I have multiple 5- and 6-figure wins, first place wins in NFL, NBA, and MLB, playing the large field, playing the 15, playing the fadeaway, right? Playing the shoot around. Oh, that's what they're calling it today, right? 54,902 entries. So I've won this before several times. But it's a bankroll sucker, right? I mean, you're losing 90+% of the time, and you're hoping to win 1 or 2 a year, right? A year. And smaller field contests, the swings are smaller. So my New Year's resolution this year was to focus more on single entry 3-max smaller field contests. Doesn't mean I don't play these also. Depends on the slate. But I never focused on the smaller field stuff before. Doesn't mean I'm not good at them. Look, I won one yesterday. I mean, I literally, like, my New Year's resolution was January 1st. And I turned $100 into 5,000 winning one. Yeah, it could have been 10,000. It could have been in another contest. You're right. I could have won whatever $1,500 contest with this. But small steps, right? I need to focus more. Doesn't mean I'm not good at single entry 3-max builds. It's just that I never focused on it. But now that I'm focused on it, I didn't play the large field stuff yesterday. So that's what I would suggest to you. Like, find your strength and focus on that until you get comfortable enough where it's like, okay, now I want to expand. I was the very same way when it comes to just even playing NBA DFS. I didn't start playing NBA DFS until 2017. I started with soccer in 2015, baseball 2016, NBA 2017, football 2017. I expanded from there. I didn't play everything all at once. So maybe that's what you need to do when it comes to the contest sizes that you play. Focus on getting. Be good at one thing rather than be like mediocre at like 6 things. You'll make more money at DFS. Like if you want to focus and be like, I want to be the best 3-man, 5-man field, like the non-guaranteed contest. Like you want to do that. That's perfectly fine. There are plenty of people that do. I know one person in particular that like crushes the 3 and 5-man lobby. Just crushes it. Because a lot of times most people play their cash lineups in those contests. And he crushes it. And that's a specialty. You don't see him on top of the leaderboards anywhere, right? Makes plenty of money doing that. Oh, let's see. Any last questions before we get out of here? Any last questions? Hit that thumbs up button on your way out. Hit the subscribe button. Hit that notification bell to know when we go live on this channel. Anthony Fila asks if I play NASCAR and NHL. Not yet. AB, should people stick to the 3 to 100-man leagues to build the bankroll? I'm assuming you're talking about FanDuel. You don't have to stick to it. I mean, those are a certain type of contest. Like you could build a bankroll in any type of contest. It's just a matter of how much variance you have, right? Obviously, the large field GPPs, you're gonna have a lot of variance. In the smaller contests, you're not gonna have as much variance. But still, at the end of the day, you have to play well, right? You should be focused. So many people focus on what contest do I play, what stakes do I play, what type of this, like everything other than building good lineups. The first thing you need to focus on is building good lineups. If you don't get the construction strategies, if you don't get concepts like correlation and leverage, if you don't understand what projections are, like there's no contest selection strategy, there's no bankroll management, there's nothing that will help you, right? Those things matter for when you are a good player. So become a good player first. Build good lineups first. Understand the game theory of DFS, which you could if you want to. You could take my course. I have a 15-hour course where that teaches you everything. Right? All the concepts I talk about on the show are in here. It's an audio course, 15 hours. Right? So it's me in your pocket. Most of the questions that I answer here they're in here. They're in here. It applies to any sport. So go to theoryofdfs.com, pick it up, and you could refer to it at any time. It's evergreen. You could listen to this 3 years from now, and it still applies. It's the game theory of DFS. How to think like a professional DFS player. A little tagline there. So go there. It's technically the sponsor of the pregame show, right? This is kind of my deal here. So I'll be back. I'll be back tomorrow, right? Back tomorrow. Back with more apple juice. Keeping the apple juice cold with the thumbs up and the subscribes and the reviews on iTunes. I feel like I've been saying that like 18 times this show, but I mean, you got to pimp it out, right? They tell you need more thumbs up. Okay, here we go. Here, more thumbs up. Here, I got the thumbs working all the time. So until tomorrow, come by for more questions and feel free to show up every weekday. 11 in the morning, here on the RotoGrinders YouTube channel, on the RotoGrinders website, for the DFS pregame show on RotoGrinders.com.